from executive session to open session.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. I'd like to welcome all the attendees. This is our March 21st, 2013 regular televised meeting. And so welcome and thank you for joining us. And if you would join us in honoring our country with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will need to adopt the agenda. Do I have a motion to do so?
So move?
Second.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. The first thing on the agenda is a presentation by the Forest Hills School District. I've been told that Dr. Jackson is running a few minutes late. Is that correct, Randy? Would you prefer that we move forward? Okay. Thank you. We'll do so. So we'll table that just for the moment and ask that the Street Tree Committee make their presentation.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Burnham. I'm the co-chair of the Street Tree Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. And I'll make sure I can get our first slide up. We have to change presentations. We're pleased to report that Anderson Township was awarded the Street Tree designation for the fourth year in a row, starting in 2009. Interestingly, it's also we're only the second township in Ohio to have received the Tree City designation. I think it's interesting. It's consistent with the leadership that the Township Trustees have established with the Green Space program in the township. So we're very pleased with that. Whoops. Just as a little refresher, our mission statement is the Tree Committee promotes and supports sound tree management practices to enhance the quality of life in Anderson Township. We had in order to qualify for the Tree City USA designation, there are 4 standards that must be met. First, we must have a tree committee, as we do, and have a tree ordinance or resolution, as the trustees have done. Thirdly, we have to have a community forestry budget with at least $2 per capita. And fourth, we have to have an Arbor Day observance proclamation, which again we do as well. And again, in keeping with the in terms of the 2012, we did have a successful year in terms of new tree plantings. We had 57 trees planted. Again, those are just the trees in the public right away for the most part. We gave away 800 seedlings, mostly through the school program. Our joke is if at least 10% of those get planted and grow, that'll be successful. But honestly, every year we do hear stories about someone telling us that, gee, their son or daughter or some relative they know, planted a tree in their backyard many years ago, and now it's, 30, 40, 50 feet tall. We did have just 37 trees removed by the township and contractors, so that was much better than in past years, where we had much more storm damage and much more damage from the Asian longhorn beetle and emerald ash borer. And again, in keeping with the trend in the township too, trying to be fiscally responsible, we have to spend at least $2 per capita to qualify for the Tree City, and we spent $2.23, so just a little over the minimum requirement, but not excessive by any means, we hope. Excuse me. This is just a list of, again, we planted 57 trees in the 2012 Street Tree Program, 15 different species in all. I'll touch on later on our inventory, but we are trying to broaden the number of trees that we plant and the number of species of trees, I should say. And not surprisingly, we didn't plant any ash trees. We all know what's happened there. So. This is just a diagram across the township, the different colors, the different programs we've done. Again, since 2009 was our pilot year. It's just a small tree planting program, but we are trying to just disperse it well throughout the township, and make sure we're not focusing on just one area, but we pretty well follow the street group is doing in terms of repairs and renovations of the streets throughout the township. Again, for Arbor Day 2012, we had a very successful program. We did visit the schools, and as all of you remember, the trustees, your successful tree planting, which you should be proud is still a live and healthy tree, so we look forward to doing that again here in 2013. Probably our biggest project in 2012, we did update our what's called tree inventory. We hire a retired arborist, again, at a very reasonable price to do a tree inventory for us. This was last done in 2008, so we updated it. The township is split into 6 different areas used by the street department to do all their maintenance. And altogether, he goes and does a record of all the trees. Again, these are trees that are in the right-of-way, so obviously there's many more trees in Anderson Township than just this, but altogether there's about 4,591 trees included in the inventory. And we do have an aging, I'm sorry to talk about this, in terms of diversity, we want to work on our diversity a lot. We have very large groupings in the flowering pears and red maples. I think about every other tree you see around is a red maple. So we're trying to broaden our diversification again for future bug infestations and things we might have that are always unpredictable. A fair number of the trees were rated in the 2012 category just in fair condition, so we're going to put a focus on some tree maintenance to make sure that they're properly pruned and in better health and condition in 2013. But to be honest, a good part of this is just an element of the aging of the township and the aging of the properties and the natural aging of the trees. For 2013, Arbor Day will be April 26th, if you don't have that on your calendar already. Again, we'll be handing out tree seedlings to the Forest Hills School District through this History of Schools program, and also to Immaculate Heart of Mary School as well. The trustees tree planting, which we look forward to seeing you all, will be on May 3rd. Probably the second most important thing we're doing this year is just focusing a lot more on the education of the public. We've written an article to be in the Anderson Insights about some of the trees, some of the flowering trees that are really very invasive and damaging in the area, unfortunately. Scott Berline, who's on our committee, who's a certified arborist and works at the Cincinnati Zoo, did a AC TV interview just a few days ago that'll be broadcast in a few months. And we hope to have more publicity in the Forest Hills Journal as well, too. So we'll be focusing on some general education for people how to care for their trees and maintain them well. Again, just in summary, for 2013, the emphasis will be on the street tree maintenance plan. We will be doing some new planting, but not as much as in past years. We're also going to develop a list of recommended trees, so if residents have questions about what kinds of trees they should be planting that will do well in our climate. And again, not so much duplication to our existing trees. We'll have a shorter list of recommended trees of different sizes, small trees and large trees and so forth. We have 3 graduates now of the Tree Commission Academy. That's sponsored by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Rick Voss and myself. Paul Drury just graduated yesterday. I think we'll recognize him today. Joshua Eastlake, who's also one of the very valuable members of our committee. He's a professional landscape architect, so he's very knowledgeable on tree management. He's in his sophomore year. We do have 2 new tree committee members this year, too, who are interested in pursuing that kind of education as well. And in closing, I think that's just the tree committee as it stands now. I want to thank Josh Sunderland, who's our co-op, for doing a great job with our presentation here, and a lot of the, excuse me, Zach Sunderland, I'm sorry, Zach, for doing our presentation for us. Also want to thank Paul Drury and Richard Shelley and Suzanne Klingman. They're very supportive and very helpful in all of our meetings. And most importantly, thank you, the trustees, for your support and encouragement of our program. We appreciate it greatly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, I have a question or two, Bruce. Describe the tree giveaway. That's to the 2nd or 3rd graders and.
Yes, we visit this. Well, historically we visited the schools. This year the schools will be coming here for the history program.
Okay.
And so we have usually 4 or 5 different varieties of trees or species of trees, just the small seedlings that they can carry with them, and give them a tree seedling and a little instruction sheet of how to plant it properly. and encourage them, if they, obviously make sure they get their parents' permission, maybe to plant it in their backyard if they can. If that doesn't work, maybe they have a relative or friend that can plant the tree in their yard. But then they're able to take the seedlings home with them and plant them and watch them grow. And if it's a little bit early, they can just plant them in a pot and kind of keep them moist.
And it's all 6 of the Forest Hills
All six
elementary
of
plus-
the elementary schools plus Immaculate Heart of Mary. So
Great.
all the grade schools in the Anderson Township area.
Okay. And earlier in your presentation, you listed new species of trees that were planted.
Yes.
That was quite a task to determine what species of trees are proper for Anderson.
Yes, that's where we're fortunate. We have some great expertise in terms of professional quality of people on the committee. Again, Scott Berline and Josh Eastlake are very well qualified and experienced in all the different varieties of trees. And it's interesting to hear them debate back and forth.
Yeah.
It's not always a.
So it's fair to
Need a
say that there
consensus.
was a lot of thought and discussion before those finals.
Absolutely. And of course, we have to look at what Paul runs into sometimes too, is sometimes we want trees, but then we have to be able to find a source for them. So sometimes the landscape companies, don't have them in inventory, and we have to choose alternatives as well. So it's also depending on what the companies are planting and growing,
Okay,
making available for us.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Very well done.
Thanks, Bruce.
We'll move back in the agenda to the facility plan for the Forest Hill School District. They want to show us their presentation. Oh, do you want to do that before? I thought we were...
Because it follows it.
Well, I've already introduced them. Sorry.
Good evening, my name's Randy Smith. I'm on the Board of Education in Forest Hill School District. I appreciate the opportunity to address this group this evening. As you may be aware, we have been looking at facilities plans for about the last 10 years. It's been my privilege to be on the board for the last 10 years as we've gone through that process. In that period of time, we've looked at a lot of different plans. Most recently, we are looking at a plan to address safety, security, accessibility, some modest improvements and renovations, importantly long-term maintenance, as well as building replacement. As you all are very aware, the assets that you maintain on behalf of our community, we have a similar responsibility to make sure that we maintain our buildings and keep them in good shape. And we've undertaken this comprehensive program, and of all the plans that we've looked at, I would share that this one is clearly the most fiscally responsible that we have looked at, and it's the one we have chosen to put on the ballot in May to let our voters decide. But what I'd really like to do at this point is introduce our superintendent, Dr. Dallas Jackson, to take us through the actual program that we're looking at.
Thank you.
And thank you, Randy, and thank you for Board of Trustees for the opportunity to share this with you this evening. If I might, if I can, there we go. I think maybe I'm going the wrong way. I probably just shut it off. There we go. Steve, can you work that for me?
There you go.
All right. What I would like to do is briefly walk you through the kind of process that the Forest Hill School District undertook to get this plan in front of the Board of Education. First of all, we started out with a vision and a mission, and without really going into a lot of detail, basically it's to provide a plan that does utilize our existing facilities, but at the same time address the success for all students and improve those learning environments. Thanks, Steve. Right button, okay. Just as a quick overview, last February I presented to the Board of Education a strategic plan for the district. In that plan, one of the goals, which was goal number 3, was simply to develop a facilities master plan that would address our current and future educational needs. In that, we had some action steps, some key initiatives which we began to undertake at that time. Since that time, we put together a steering committee to look at the studies that had been accomplished in the past, and we reviewed those. We toured our buildings. We talked to consultants. The great thing about this steering committee is we didn't have to start from the beginning. As Randy said, we had a number of plans to look at, and a lot of research had been done over the last several years. But basically what it amounted to is that we began to focus and identify on what were really our real true needs of the district. Before we even got to that point, though, the committee itself, the steering committee, basically had what we call some critical assumptions that we made right off the bat. Due to the studies that we had done, due to the information that I had received from our community, one of the first things was that we realized that we were not going to recommend any building configuration changes to the Board of Education. We are very, Forest Hill School District, as everyone I hope knows by this time, is one of the top districts in the state of Ohio. We were just recognized for our 12th consecutive year of meeting the highest expectations from the state of Ohio. So with that, the configurations of our building and the way we put that together plays a big part of that. As well as no configuration changes, in other words, to maintain our 2 high schools, 1 middle school and 6 elementary schools. Another key assumption from this particular group was that we were going to maintain our neighborhood school concept. We have 6 wonderful communities with an elementary as kind of that connecting factor of those communities throughout our district of Anderson Township and the village of Newtown. We were going to maintain that. But also we decided, we really do have some needs that we have to address, and so this specific plan needed to be needs-based as well as long-term. So with that, we came up with some findings, and those findings were very critical. Even before December the 14th, which everyone knows was the incident that happened in Connecticut, which really brought safety into, again, the consciousness of everyone across the country, we were looking at those same issues long before that, and we identified some safety and security needs or modifications in our district, which were some facilities modifications. The second was the need to optimize our current learning environments. And I can go into a lot of detail, but basically to take a look at how our facilities can help us improve the delivery of our educational system to our children. And lastly, and this was kind of new to me, I knew we had some issues across our district in regards to accessibility, but those kept coming out again and again and again, meaning the fact that we need to provide accessibility to all of our students, all of our parents, and especially our community members when it comes to having access to all rooms in our buildings. Excuse me. So with that said, those were the 3 key findings, as well as the fact that we did have one facility, which was Wilson Elementary, that has been identified in every study as being a building that really does need to be replaced. The amount of revenue it would take to modify it to the potential that it could be would be far in excess of what it would cost to build a new one. So with that said, in summary already, although I would like to go back and talk a little bit about some of those needs, is that in early January, the Board of Education chose to be on the ballot for the May 7th election coming up for a $1.86 million facilities needs bond issue. We currently have over 1 million square feet under roof that we need to address. This $1.86 million facilities issue will cost our community approximately $56 per 100,000 market value of their property. The total, which is, as I said, about $56 per 100,000 for a total projection of $47 million. So, moving on. So this comprehensive facilities plan is needs-based. It addresses safety and security, primarily every one of our buildings, and addresses the whole entrance areas of our buildings, as well as many other safety factors throughout. It is also addresses the accessibility of all of our community, our students, our staff, and community. In regards to, there are many of our facilities where we cannot, if you have a handicap disability of some type or another, to get students and our staff to the 2nd floor isn't a possibility other than through stairs. And then on top of that, this particular plan does address our learning environments. Basically at each of our buildings to take a look at how we deliver the education and upgrade some of our classrooms as well as some of the learning environments, for instance, our science classrooms across the board, as well as addressing some of our technology needs as well. So on top of that, it does address a replacement for Wilson Elementary School. So again, in summary, this plan provides value to our community and to our district. What I mean by that is simply it takes advantage of our current conditions across our community, of the low interest rates that the district will be able to receive through the issuance of bonds, as well as a highly competitive bidding process now. The construction companies are still very hungry. So we believe that that'll provide, again, additional benefit when it comes to the whole building process of getting more for the dollar, so to speak. So in summary, what does this do? It extends the life, the design life in particular, of all of our buildings for quite some time into the future. Our facilities outside of Wilson Elementary are strong. The envelopes of those buildings are in very good condition. You know, we don't have paint peeling off the walls, we don't have major leaks or problems, but we need to address the needs that I've shared with you tonight. And it also fulfills that mission of success for all of our students in those learning environments now into the future. So with that said, if anyone were to have any questions, I can take those now from our trustees. And if anyone from the audience or would like to gain further information, they can feel free to contact me at central office or any one of our staff.
Okay. I know Mr. Jackson has some remarks for you, Dr. Jackson.
If I may, after we finish this, I don't want to interfere with what we're talking about, but I do have a question.
Sure.
Having spent a few years, not nearly as many as
Stop.
in this community, one of the things that has happened over the years is every time the school district would provide a projection as to increase or decrease in number of children, the actual event actually went in the opposite direction. Has there been any of that taken into consideration, or are you looking at a pretty level future?
Yeah, Russ, actually, we're looking at a pretty level future. If you look back into the last 10 to 15 years, our population has varied very little over the time period. We're going to be hovering around 7,600 students for quite some time. You know, projections are just that. Sometimes we project that we might increase in students and others that decrease, but over that 10 to 12-year period, we've hovered within about 100 to 200 students of that. Just this year, we're down just, I think, 11 students from where we were this time last year. Prior to that, we were up 20 students, and you know, just you have that really small ebb and flow, but our projections are because, as you know, we're pretty much built out in our communities. We're going to stay around that 7,600 student mark.
One of the things that we have been working through our various committees, both the Angkor Committee, the Riverfront Committee, and the Beachmont Committee, is the new housing opportunities. But most of those new housing opportunities are not single-family type homes. They will tend to be, from what we've seen, more than likely empty nesters. So even though we do see some growth potential if we do things right, I don't see that it would have any impact on your plans.
And it's our projections as well, that we truly believe that we're going to stay pretty consistent for the next several years. If we were to have the opportunity for a few more students, we can address that. There's no problem with that. That our facilities, you know, when you're looking at 9 different facilities and you have, let's say, an extra 100 students, you know, if you divide those out across the facilities, that's, you know, 10 to 12 more per facility, and we can easily address those students. This plan does take into consideration some modest growth if we have that, but primarily our projections are that we're going to stay about the same.
Just so you know, my children still won't forgive the Forest Hill School District for closing Newtown School. So
long before my time.
It's amazing. It was obsolete in, what was that, 1975 or thereabouts. So.
Okay. Any other questions?
I do believe, one thing, the excellence of a school district is not necessarily based on its facilities. However, I haven't been a parent of school-age children for quite some time, but I do believe that with the neighborhood excellence that we have here in Anderson and the quality of homes, and quite truthfully, the amount of taxes that residents pay, I do think that that would become a factor for them at some point, especially with Wilson. I mean, that has needed, in my opinion, needed to be addressed for quite some time, and happy that it's in part of your plan. So I think that, the quality of the buildings that the children go into, and most recently with the tragedies that you are addressing, the safety should go a long way for parent support, I should think.
Thank you so much. And you're absolutely correct that, we have a phenomenal teaching staff in our district, but we have good kids, great kids, and we have great families that live in our community. So you are correct in the fact that it's not necessarily the facilities itself that leads to that. But on the other hand, it really can add to the value. When we take a look at, for instance, several of our facilities are not air conditioned. And you talk about safety and security on a warm summer, or fall or spring day, and like last year at this time, it was over 80 degrees in our community, and those buildings get very warm. So when you're talking safety security with that alone, just the number of doors that are propped open does not bode well for safe environments. We close them and a student comes along and opens them back up. So to address that as well as those in learning environments, as you said, there are days during the year where, again, it is very uncomfortable for our students and our staff because of maybe temperature conditions or other issues that are going on in that facility that we need to address. Right. As I said, if we take a look at our science labs alone at our high school, they most definitely need upgraded in regards to providing those quality facilities to help lend in the great education that we provide for our kids. So thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
one quick comment. Looking at the cost allocation here, about 30%, 31% for new Wilson.
Yes.
I concur with Ms. Rice that that's long overdue. As actually a student there in second, third grade, I think there were some issues even way back then.
I think your initials are still carved in one of the desks, too.
They could be. Maybe some gum under a desk, too. But I do appreciate that you're putting about 45% in the rest of the buildings. I think that'll bring them up to snuff, up to speed with where they need to be for a solid learning environment for our children. So I concur. I think the allocation is very, very well thought out, and I support it. So thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience for Dr. Jackson?
I would, you mentioned earlier about the fact that the timing, because of interest rates and other reason. One that you didn't mention, but I think could have tremendous impact on your building plan, was House Bill 153. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it because we had focused so much on other aspects of it. But for the first time, later on in this meeting, we're going to be talking about something as simple as a re-roof for our Station 6. With House Bill 153, essentially design-build eliminated one of the three layers of bureaucracy that was built into our government, and we're looking at 5 to perhaps 10% savings on each project as we get into them by eliminating that layer, and I hope that was something that you all had taken into consideration.
Absolutely. House Bill 153 is a godsend for government entities like the township and like a school district, where it does make the bidding process much, much more competitive and in regards to saving these entities a great deal of money in the long run. Yes.
For the first time, actually saw action by the government to eliminate bureaucracy. It is really refreshing. We need more of it.
Absolutely.
We need to tell our legislators just how important this is and how good it's been to the community, because most things they do, as you well know, with your funding problems, it goes the other way. So that's great.
And one last thing that I might add, I really appreciate working with Vicki and the rest, and we've been working and trying to look at more collaborative efforts between the township and the school district as we move along, again, for savings in
That
those
was what I
regards.
was going to bring up last, and I just wanted to personally thank you, particularly in front of two of your astute board members here, that I can't thank you enough for reaching out and working with Vicki, or trying to work with Vicki to, for the first time, I believe, break down the barriers and see if there aren't some collaborative efforts, shared services of some kind or another that we could do. You know, it's sad that we work with all the other communities and you work with all the other school districts for these collaborative activities, and yet we've never really taken a formal look at working together in our own community. You know, we're both responsible to the same taxpayers, and I think in today's environment, our taxpayers expect us to do more of that, and I truly appreciate what you've done, and I hope you guys would go back and really make it an effort of the entire board, because it's got to trickle down past Dallas. So much of the resistance is down at this level, not up at this level. And for whatever reasons, well, they didn't like something that I said or whatever, and all of a sudden we're bad guys. We've got to get rid of all that nonsense and work together. And we're prepared to do it.
Thank you.
And we hope that
And I feel remiss because I left
thank you.
Steve out of the picture, too. Working with Vicki and Steve have been very, very beneficial for us, so thank you, Steve. Thank you. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. All right, going back to the trees, we have some recognition of the Street Tree Academy graduates, and I think Trustee O'Brien is going to manage that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rice. Anderson Township is fortunate in that many of its staff and residents volunteer their time and talents to better our community. A number of these individuals have taken the spirit of service to a new level by participating in the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Division of Forestry's Tree Commission Academy. That's a mouthful, Paul. The Academy is a series of courses designed to provide training for volunteers serving in Ohio Tree Commission, local public officials, and staff. The program's mission is to provide community officials and allied agencies with the organization and technical ability to effectively manage the trees along streets, within parks, and on public grounds. During this 2-year program, students receive more than 50 hours of in-class instruction, covering a wide variety of topics, including tree care, maintenance, proper planning techniques, contract preparation, budgeting, managing volunteers, strategic planning, and marketing, etc. And I imagine there's a bit of homework, too, involved with this, too. 3 volunteers on our Street Tree Committee, Scott Berline, Bruce Bruno, Rick Voss, have graduated from the program, and as recent as yesterday, Paul Drury recently completed his senior class a week or so ago and graduated yesterday, so congratulations, Paul. You have a couple other people on the committee, Bob Petrick and Joss Eastlake, which have completed the freshman courses and will move on to their sophomore level. And the dedication and achievements of these individuals will go a long way towards advancing the urban forestry program in the township. Thank you, gentlemen, very, very much. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Great. Next on the agenda is a presentation, and so it is something rather new in our township. It is something that I think was an initiative about a year ago, started a year ago, and we have something before us, which is a result of those efforts. So we will hear now from our Anderson Township Ethics Committee.
Good evening. We are here tonight to present an idea for an ethics committee for Anderson Township. In 2011, the administration asked for volunteers to be part of a committee to develop an ethics program for Anderson Township, and we are some of the members of that committee. Employees from every department were part of it. Let me just name them real quick. In terms of the committee, Becky Campbell is from the Public Works. Judy Dill is Administration. Lieber Schmidt is part of the Fiscal Office. Tom Caruso, I'm from Planning and Zoning. Tony Gastrick is from the Fire Department. Jamie Bender is also from Public Works. And Bob Haythorne is also from the Fire Department. In 2011, like I said, we came together to come up with a ethics policy that we thought would be important for the township. And we came up with a policy statement as follows. Anderson Township is committed to provide services which protect and enhance the quality of life in the community while maintaining a high level of integrity in the most professional and ethical manner possible. In order to secure the trust of the public, elected officials and colleagues, Anderson Township employees and officials work together to develop ethical policies which exceed those required by state law, setting the standard of excellence for local governance. And so over the last couple of years, we've, with Vicki Earhart's guidance and help, we came up with a policy that I think is in front of you today. And so we're here to answer any questions that you might have, or...
Do you want to give
In addition,
us...
we're going to have a panel made up of people from the town center, and questions that employees have, whether they can accept this or can they get this gift, and, you know, there's various ethics issues. But anyway, that way there was somebody to further define and guide them, and if we don't know or the panel doesn't know, they know who to go to get the answer. And I think that would be really good, educational as well.
Tom, would you like to expand for the audience just a bit about how you worked with the State Ethics Commission and used some of the input that they gave you about frequently asked questions?
Well, that's a good point. And one of the things that Becky brought up is the educational component of this ethics committee that we'll have moving forward, or ethics panel. The State Ethics Board does have a frequently asked questions part on their website, where questions that have been asked by public officials throughout the state are logged onto that site, so that if you have any type of ethics question, you can get some sense of, you know, what, how the board has ruled in the past. Furthermore, if there's a question that isn't directly answered by those frequently asked questions, you can ask the Ethics Committee to come up with a ruling that gives us direction. One of the things I think the committee found in developing this Ethics Committee is how much we didn't know about what was allowed and what isn't allowed. As a matter of fact, we're pretty much convinced that most townships and cities may not know exactly, you know, some of the things that they do may be against the state law. So this educational component is real important.
So this just takes us one step beyond what's out there.
Exactly.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, and it's nice that the panel is being formed so that as questions arise. Now, your next step, should we adopt this policy tonight, would be to go to all of our employees and give them the information so that they have a safe base from which to operate. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. We will develop the, once you approve it, we'll go back to the employees, have a training session on the ethics committee findings that we came up with, and also we will develop a panel which will meet probably 3 times a year to discuss any types of questions that come up from the employees. We hope to further train employees over the years with different training programs for teaching them the ethics, you know, the proper ethics codes and procedures that the township should follow. The panel will be, will consist of employees, and we'll have, I forget.
One member from the committee.
Right, and we'll be part of the panel to 3 years maximum?
Yes. That's-
If I remember
yeah, It was a
correctly, thank you.
rotating,
I'm having a brain cramp, sorry.
no, it was a rotating panel where each department would be represented, and it would be rotating positions so that each employee that wished to volunteer to serve on the panel would have an opportunity to do so.
Right.
Any further questions or discussion?
The board had the good fortune of listening to the entire presentation at our interim planning meeting.
Right.
And I think we were all quite impressed by the enthusiasm and the depth of the action taken by your committee to try to do the right thing, and very impressive.
If I can say, first off, it's a committee of equals, but everybody worked really hard researching ethics policies, not only in the state, but on the federal level, in different states, different professional groups. So we really did a really thorough job in coming up with ethics policies that we used as a basis for Anderson Township. So we really think we're going to be above the standard when it comes to when it comes with this ethics panel.
And Ms. Rice, if I may add, team members went out and they met with each and every employee. They met with each shift on the Fire and Rescue Department and really explained what their process was going to be. There was a survey conducted of employees to find out if the employees understood the statutes that were presented to them a couple of years ago as required by state law, and to understand what the employees would like to see that would help them learn about what ethics is all about, learn about maintaining the proper demeanor when dealing with residents, and make sure that this township really shines. And I cannot commend the committee enough, the team enough, for what they did, because as Tom mentioned, they met on a monthly basis, but there was a tremendous amount of research that was done outside of those meetings. It got to the point where, and Becky did it this week, where it was on autopilot. The team members took initiative as far as sending out emails reminding their fellow team members of upcoming meetings, reminding them about research that needed to be conducted. And they also have become true ambassadors for the township. They have been going out and talking to employees and telling them about the benefits of giving their input to administration and to the board, and talking to them about the ethics policies and helping them learn. So I think it has been beneficial because, as I've told them before, their fellow employees are much more likely to listen to them than they are to administration. So it's been a huge benefit, I believe, from Township's perspective.
And if I can just say one other thing, everyone tried to be here tonight. We have a couple of members that weren't able to be here because of conflicts, but I do want to make sure Judy Dill, Lieber Schmidt are recognized. They're here tonight, and again, part of the Committee of Equals. Everybody worked really hard, so.
And we appreciate that. And your efforts have resulted in the policy which we have before us, and about which we have a resolution.
I would move that we adopt a resolution adopting the Anderson Township ethics policy as printed before us.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. Thank you very,
Thank
very
you
much.
very much.
It will reflect well on our community. Thank you.
Typically, we do have a legislative update from our state representative, Peter Stoutberg. He is not in the audience this evening. I believe that we were told that he is in a late session in Columbus, and but he has addressed a couple of concerns through Administrator Earhart, one from a resident for the last meeting, and a position that she asked him to draft on legislation. So no doubt that's taken care of, and he'll be in attendance next month. But if he comes late, we'll still introduce him. We're at the portion of our meeting now which is public forum, and that means that anyone who wishes, who's here, who wishes to address this board at this public meeting, this televised meeting, may step forward to one of the podiums and do so at this time. We ask that they make non-repetitive points, clearly and concisely, and limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. They are also asked to state their name and address for the record. So anyone who wishes to come forward, please do so now.
Hi, my name is Rachel Christian. I am the field representative for Congressman Brad Winstrup. I just wanted to introduce myself to the township. I serve as the liaison to the congressman as well as to our legislative staff down in D.C. Any concerns that anybody has, you feel free to address our office. Just so you know, our office does deal with federal agencies for constituents. So if anybody you know, or if you're having an issue with a federal agency, Veterans Affairs, Immigration, Social Security, anything like that, you can come to our office and we will help you to the best of our abilities. Also, for high school students coming up, we are doing the Congressional Art Competition. You can find all the information for that on our website. Also, the Congressman is hosting an Academy Day for high school students who are interested in the military academies, and that'll be held at Anderson High School on April 13th. And also, I'll give you everyone my phone number at the office, which is 513-474-7777. And we are just down the road on Beachmont above the Anderson Fire Department. Thank you.
Yeah, Rachel, what is the actual address there on Beachmont?
7954
Thank you.
7954, we
Suite
know
200.
that.
I'm not used to doing that one.
We know
Sorry,
it.
You guys got it.
For those, excuse me, for those who the reason we laugh about that, for those who don't know, is that the congressman and his staff are now on the second floor of Station 6, which is our fire station on Beachmont. So, Rachel has been kind enough to meet with each of us as a Board of Trustees and to open up the lines of communication and cooperation so that we feel that we can have a cooperative effort. And I would just say that we are so extremely pleased to have the congressman in our portion of his district. So thank you for that, Rachel.
Absolutely. Rachel, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. My apologies.
But their sign will be out shortly, so very soon, so anyone who passes by will know where their office is. And I must say that she did comment today that they feel very safe there. No wonder. So that's good. Anyway, thank you. Anyone else who wishes to address the board? Hearing no one, we'll have trustee comments, if any. Quiet bunch tonight. All right, that means that our fiscal officer, Mr. Kenneth Dietz, is ready to give us financial reports.
Thank you. We do have financial reports available for the end of February 2013. We have received quite a bit of real estate tax revenue from the county auditor's office, and we do not, as of this time, have the final settlement, but we're expecting that very soon. And of course, the school district's here anxiously awaiting us to disperse our TIF payments to the schools, so we'll get that out as soon as we get our settlement reports. The other thing is we need to adopt our permanent summary budget for 2013. As we always go back and think of what happened in July of 2012, where we had to adopt a tax budget, which I don't believe the school districts have to do anymore, but it's not a bad exercise to go through. You think you do? Yeah. I think at one time Dusty Roads eliminated, school districts. Some of them still might be doing it, but used to be thought of as something that we didn't want to do, but it is a good exercise. We meet with our staff, administrators, We do adopt that in July of every year, so we did it in 2012. So what happened from 2012, July, to the beginning of this year, we started making changes to that. Usually we try to cut, and we did cut quite a few areas, but we had some areas of the TIF budget which we just needed to add to the budget. Our TIF initial number was 1.2 million, which was very, very low. We do try to keep a TIF balance, which we've been able to do in line with what the trustees' guidance was a couple years ago. As a matter of fact, we have a better balance than what we've tried to keep. So we did increase the permanent budget from the tax budget, especially in the TIF area, by $1 million, but certain projects that we just needed to get through, we added. The other addition was a $235,000 FEMA line item that we just want to transfer to the general fund. Well, that becomes part of our budget, even though we're not spending the money, we're just transferring it. So with that in mind, we are still pretty much in line with what our permanent budget was last year. We're $5,000 more than what it was in 2012. We came up with a final budget of about $250,000 more than the permanent budget because we had to make some appropriation increases. We spent almost $4 million less than we had budgeted for, and we hope to do something similar to that this year. So what we're asking the board to do is approve the summary permanent budget for 2013. We did have a planning meeting at our interim workshop 2 weeks ago. We made some changes to the tax budget at that time, and then after that we've also made a couple more minor changes to that tax budget, which brings us to the permanent budget for 2013. So, any questions?
Not really.
Comment?
Very convoluted process that we have to go through in Port Canada. The staff has to go through in budgets. In the private sector, you put a budget together for the beginning of a year, and that's the budget that you use. Well, government, that's too simple and logical. Instead, you put what is referred to as a preliminary budget 5 months before the calendar year begins. Then you modify that for a final adoption 3 months into the following year. I have no idea why it's that way, but that's the way it is, and it does sound onerous at times. But the important thing to remember, and Ken said it, we put together a budget, but for the last 5 years, we have been pardon me, somewhere our actual expenditures have been between 10 and almost 20% below what we budgeted. The budget is, sometimes you have to gauge that you might do this one or you might do that one, and you only do one of those two, and that's why you have these higher numbers. But we are always $3-4 million under what we budgeted, and we do that purposely, and we plan it that way. And I commend Ken and the staff and the people who really do all the dirty work for the effort that they put in. And the reason I don't use crayon anymore is because I only use it in the July budget.
I see. It's so
I would just say to
colorful.
the staff, we're really under the gun now, aren't we? So, but I would like to thank my assistant Debbie and all the department heads, the administration, because we do meet frequently to pare the budget down, and we're always asked, what are you going to do this year? And we're using department heads, administration ideas to come up with whether they're minor savings or significant savings. We're not looking at revenue increases, so the only way we can keep our funds under control is to come up with some nice ideas, which we have done and we will continue to do. So.
And this is not the first time this evening we've seen this budget. we had our annual planning meeting 2 weeks ago, and we were able to review it rather extensively at that time, and that was good as well because we can now feel very comfortable with it. Having said that, do we have a motion?
I would move that we adopt the 2013 permanent summary budget as presented by Mr. Dietz.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you.
I might just mention that our expenditures last year were 20% lower than what they were in 2009.
Well done.
17.2%, Mr. Jackson.
I'm sorry?
17.2. When you look at expenditures, actual expenditures, I asked Mr. Dietz to come up with this. From 2001, actual expenditures actually steadily grew, taking out the anomaly of this building in 2007 and 8, and peaked at the end of 2009. And then in the last 3 years, they've actually decreased, as Mr. Jackson has mentioned, by over $6 million and about a little over 17%. So each of the last 3 years, we've been able to trim our actual cash expenditures by over $6 million. So I think that has a lot to do with the way the staff has looked at expenses and really tightened their belts across the board, and I appreciate that. I'm sure all the taxpayers do also. Thank you very much.
The roll? Did we do it?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. Good, okay. We have only one set of minutes to approve this evening.
I would move that we adopt the minutes of February 21st, 2013 with minor edits.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. Our law director, Mrs. Margaret Comey, is with us this evening. Do you have a report for us, Margaret?
I have no report this evening, thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Planning and zoning, Paul Drury.
Good evening. In late January, we had a zoning commissioner who had to resign from the zoning commission, and therefore we have a vacancy to fill for an unexpired term to expire this coming December 31st, 2013. So we did advertise for a position for a zoning commission member, and staff is recommending that the current alternates be bumped up, so to speak. The first alternate be moved up to a regular member to fill that vacancy, who is Jonathan Gothard. The current second alternate is Christine Cook. We are recommending that she be moved up to first alternate, and we are recommending that Jay Lewis be appointed as the second alternate. Both of the alternate positions are for a one-year term to expire at the end of 2013.
I would move that we appoint Jonathan Gothard to an unexpired term on the Anderson Township Zoning Commission to expire December 31st, 2013. Christine Cook as the first alternate, and J. Lewis as the second alternate to the Anderson Township Zoning Commission for the remainder of 2013.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item under our agenda, Mr. Burno alluded to earlier. We're happy to announce that the township did receive the Tree City USA designation again for 2013, or I'm sorry, for 2012. You accomplished the criteria within the year, and at the end of the year, the announcement is made. There will be a celebration. Southwest Ohio Regional Tree City Awards will be in Green Hills this year on Friday, April the 19th. So representatives from the township and the Street Tree Committee will be in attendance to accept our Tree City Award for 2012. Also, as part of the continuing requirements to reach the criteria for this year, one of those is to declare or have a resolution declaring Arbor Day celebration in the township. And we are recommending that be done for Friday, April the 26th. And also, as alluded to in the presentation, part of our celebration this year is to hand out seedlings to the Forest Hills students during the History to Schools program, as well as IHM students, and the planting of a tree by our elected officials. So there is a resolution for your consideration.
On behalf of J. Sterling Morton, I would move that we declare April 26, 2013 as Arbor Day in Anderson Township.
Second.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. Paul, you're not really going to hand those seedlings to 600 seven-year-olds, are you? They could turn into swords on the bus quite easily.
We will have help. And we have. The past several years, we have. They thoroughly enjoy it. They really do. And yes, some of them do turn into swords.
Yes.
But they're small seedlings.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I had, unless you had further questions.
No, I have no further questions, but we do need to do the Arbor Day. We have a resolution before us.
Yes, we do.
I'll handle. I move for adoption of Resolution 13-0321, declaring April 26, 2013 as Arbor Day. I'm sorry, did you make that resolution already?
Yes.
It just occurred to me that you did.
Mr. O'Brien seconded.
We can do it again.
He had Sterling.
Okay, I didn't mean to preempt you. I got it. Okay.
Quite all right.
You want to take the vote again?
Yes. And we vote
So sorry.
Mr. O'Brien?
I
Yes.
just didn't realize that we had done it.
Twice.
Thank you.
Ms. Rice?
Mr. Jackson made a joke and kind of saw off kill.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Anyway, we more than have established Arbor Day, I think. Okay. Oh. All right. Next is the Sheriff's Office, and we're welcoming Lieutenant Matt Gay,
Good evening.
or Guy, excuse me.
The beginning of the meeting started off a little rocky. I was
Yeah,
informed that I took Chief Ober's seat. I'll try not to do that next month.
Be careful.
The only thing I have on my agenda is the stop sign resolution. It's a stop sign request for the intersection of Heather Hill Boulevard and Knightsbridge Drive. This is something that upon my assignment I inherited. I think all the legwork was already done on this. We received a request at District 5 to investigate the need for a stop sign at the intersection of Heather Hill Boulevard and Knightsbridge Drive. That task was assigned to Officer Jerry Brandhorst, who is a member of our traffic safety unit. He's assigned to Anderson Township as our second shift traffic officer. Guidelines for the investigation were the type of intersection, the existing signage, sight distance, and the curvature of the roadway. I'll summarize Patrol Officer Brandhorst's report. He reports that the intersection of Heather Hill Boulevard and Knightsbridge is a T intersection. There are no stop signs at this intersection currently. Visibility is good for traffic on Heather Hill Boulevard. The approach to Heather Hill from Knightsbridge is somewhat limited due to the grade. Officer Brandhorst then recommended that one stop sign be erected at Knightsbridge Drive, on Knightsbridge Drive at Heather Hill Boulevard, and he recommends no stop signs for Heather Hill Boulevard. After reading that report and speaking with Officer Brandhorst, I concur to his level of expertise, and I agree with his recommendation that a stop sign be put up on Knightsbridge at Heather Hill.
Good.
I would move that we authorize the installation of a stop sign on Knightsbridge at the intersection of Heather Hill Boulevard in accordance with the requirements set forth in the Ohio Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Second.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Yeah, Lieutenant, I have a comment here.
Yes, sir.
I'm hesitant to have additional stop signs installed pretty much anywhere. I think this is appropriate at this location. I would invite you to drive through one of our communities where stop signs are prevalent, and that is Sherwood Forest. I would encourage you not to turn the rest of the community into Sherwood Forest. Stop signs are virtually everywhere. And I know there's a lot of kids in that there, but boy, it seems like we have a lot of them.
And in response to that, when we do get these requests to investigate these, we will rely on the expertise that we have, the officers that are trained in traffic, and we'll treat them on a case-by-case basis and investigate them and bring them to the board with your recommendations.
Yeah, and I looked at this intersection. It's appropriate for the one stop sign there, so, okay. Thank you.
As you know, Lieutenant, probably better than anyone, we do get citizens from time to time that request stop signs. not because you need a stop sign, but because they're looking for a calming device. And that's what you see on Knightsbridge, because it's a long run out to either side. Sometimes there is some acceleration, but the law is pretty clear regarding not using stop signs as a calming device. And I think people need to know that. So.
Correct.
Good. Thank you. Public Works Department, Richard Shelley.
Greetings from your friendly neighborhood Public Works Department. I would also like to point out, if we were sitting by age, I would be down next to Paul and the chief would be here on the end. What you have is one item before you tonight. Mr. Jackson alluded to it earlier. It is the first time we have been able to utilize the design-build process. We have a contract here to enter into for a re-roof at Station 6, or we learned earlier, 7954 Beachmont Avenue. And the purpose of that is to hire the architect, as Mr. Jackson alluded. The old process was you hired the architect or engineering firm, they did the design. The design cost was usually based on the overall cost of the building. It was a percentage. You would then go out for bid, and then you would build. So it was a design, bid, build process. What we're utilizing here is a design-build process, which eliminates one of the layers. You still are required, under that House bill, to utilize the services of a professional engineer or architect to get us to that point. But the cost for them to use on the front end of that is very dramatically reduced. So what you see before you is the opportunity for us to enter into that contract. I would also point out that one of the reasons that cost is at its level is we are investigating the possibility of using a green roof on that facility. We want to rule it in or rule it out based on the structure, the steel, the overall makeup of that facility. So if we can utilize it, we're going to try to, and if we can't, we need to know that. So part of that cost is to investigate the possibility of a green roof at that facility.
What do you envision as a green roof? What kind of...
Could be anything from plantings to solar panels to whatever else might prevail on top of whatever the size would allow.
And part of the feasibility of that would be based on the weight load to the structure?
That's exactly what it is. You know, if we're going to use planter box or plantings or the solar panels or whatever mechanism we're going to use, the structure has to be able to handle that. So we're investigating what the structure will and will not handle in order so that we can rule some things in and out. We really don't know yet until we do this study.
Is that entire roof a flat roof?
Yes.
Not pitched at all?
Correct.
And in your estimation, might that be part of the issue with leakage in the past?
I think part of the issue was just age.
Oh.
You know, the flat roof was replaced many years ago under the new addition, and it was, you know, it wasn't just one addition, it was a couple additions over time, and actually occurred before my getting here. Last time the building was remodeled in the early 80s.
I'm thinking late 70s, early 80s.
Vicky's thinking late 70s, so something in that nature, and that roof has been in place since then. So what we're just seeing is some age, it's time.
The roof actually has like 5 different levels. And that's part of the problem, that
Correct.
Increases the cost because you have this level.
Part of the addition,
Actually,
yes.
I think 5 total levels.
There's the hose tower, and then the actual bays, and then the administration building, and then the second floor. So, as Mr. Jackson said, it's a lot to get across.
Good.
I would move that we authorize the township administrator, after consultation with the law director, to enter into a contract with KBA Architects for Fire Station 6 re-roof design services in an amount not to exceed $5,907, including 10% contingency funded by TIF funds.
Second.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
That's all I have.
No, yeah. Yeah. I do see that. It's a lot. Next is the Administrator Department. Vicki Earhart, Steve Sievers, and Suzanne Parker.
Good evening. Mr. Severs has the first several items for the board.
And I wanted to acknowledge the Fire and Rescue Department because I think we may have glossed over them. But
Oh, I'm
Chief
sorry.
Over, do you have any?
We were ignoring
Why,
the age factor.
I won't go back to the age factor. No. Did you?
In succession here.
What's going on down there?
I think we're going to have to separate them for the next meeting.
I'm sorry, Chief. I saw that you had nothing on the agenda, but I didn't mean to ignore you.
But we all said we liked your tie.
Yeah, that's nice. Very nice.
Goodness.
We'll ask Ms. Hucker to sit in the middle next month. So I have the first few items, as Ms. Earhart mentioned, the first of which, as the board is aware, late last year we made application to the Hamilton County Community Development Department, or HCDC as it's referred to, for their commercial revitalization program. We learned in December that our project was selected, and we've been working with HCDC to fine-tune a scope for a Beachmont Avenue commercial corridor study. That proposed scope of services is in your packet. Again, these are matching funds whereby the township would pay approximately 25% of the anticipated project cost. The rest would be allocated by Hamilton County through their general funds. In essence, it's basically allowing staff of HCDC to prepare this report on our behalf, so they're funds that are otherwise provided by the county for HCD's operation. And we would help to supplement those. So there's a motion before you. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
I would move to authorize the township administrator, subject to review by the law director, to enter into an agreement with the Hamilton County Development Company to conduct the Beachmont commercial study as presented by staff and consistent with the recommendation of the Anderson Township Economic Development Committee for an amount not to exceed $5,000 with matching funds of $15,000 to be provided and paid from Hamilton County general funds.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. That's a project that we should be wrapped up by this fall, so we'll certainly keep you updated on our progress with HCDC. Second item I have is for a project that we've been working on for quite some time. This involves the Beachmont and 5 Mile continuous flow intersection. The township is one of the property owners in that corridor, and that we own Fell Lane, a township street. We also have maintenance licenses for improvements on 4 other properties that we introduced back, I think, in 2006, that being on the Outer Belt property, which is now the Health Plaza on the southeast corner, the IHOP property, Anderson Town Center, and also on BP. You have a motion, or actually a resolution before you to allow for the disposition of that real estate. It's a donation to the county engineer's office, and that we are a funding partner for that project, so it helps to keep our overall costs down. And I also should note that because we crafted those licenses the way we did, the township actually is the owner. Otherwise, we'd be compensating those owners for improvements that we made. So we were, we did our due diligence, and it's paying off and helping to keep that cost down. If there's any questions on that, I'm happy to answer that. But again, it will allow us to proceed with that project.
Any questions?
I would move that we adopt a resolution authorizing disposition of real estate in connection with the continuous flow intersection at Beachmont Avenue and 5 Mile Road.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. Final item I have involves a potential new application for transportation alternative grant funds, which used to be the Transportation Enhancement Funds through OKI. These are funds that we've been very fortunate over the past few years to be recipient of. We are debating an application for a project on Wolf Angle Road between Beachmont Avenue and State Road. This is a project about 3,800 feet in length, just a little bit smaller than the Asbury project, which was funded by the predecessor and funding source to this program. We feel like this project is a great standing, fits the criteria that they're looking for, and it fits within the constraints outlined in the program, and that they've put a funding cap of $500,000 for each award. Therefore, there's a resolution for your consideration. If the board feels inclined to proceed, we will consider a grant application, which would be due in April, and we would know the results of that in June of this year. So,
I would move that we adopt a resolution authorizing grant application to construct Anderson Trails Link and committing local matching funds.
Second?
I have a question. This reallocation, redesigning of the federal transportation dollars, Under this new plan, I may be mistaken about this, but I think the projects, I don't want to say they're shovel-ready, but is there also an anticipation that they will be completed within a certain amount of time?
They've asked that they would be completed within 2 years. I think that's a fairly ambitious request, unless the project's already in a funding pipeline. We've done the preliminary design on this. We still have to do the final engineering, but for an entity to have final engineering done and be ready to go, and then have to go back and go through all the steps, retroactive, would take time. So while it needs to be shovel-ready, unless there's a project where they're putting icing on the cake, so to speak, at which point that kind of gets away from this program's kind of anticipated area, because this is meant to fund kind of new projects, new connections, those types of things, not to be a Band-Aid for projects that may be over cost or over budget or something like that.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. I don't know where we'll rank in that. Again, there's about a little over $2 million available in Ohio, so they cap them at $500,000, so it'd be a pretty competitive process for the 4 counties in Ohio for those funds.
Speaking of the competitive process, I would mention that Steve is more than a little aware of the point system and the awarding of points for that are necessary for a project to qualify, and this follows the guidelines that have been applied in the past by OKI, correct?
It does. Actually, this is the first time they'll be applying those guidelines to these funds.
Yeah.
In the past, it was a more flexible type of approach, and we benefited from that. We had a great working relationship.
Yeah.
I don't think that would, this certainly would continue, but there's a competitive scoring process. So we'll know pretty quickly after middle part of April where we rank, and we in fact will know going in kind of where we fit in the point system. It's just a matter of who else would be competing for those. We had considered another project, as you're aware, with Beachmont Vision Plan that this board updated or adopted earlier this year. But again, with the funding constraint of $500,000 and the lack of being able to phase that project, we're going to be looking to a different source next year.
CMAQ.
Yeah, CMAQ for that project.
Okay.
And we certainly know what we're getting into. We've had that discussion with this board as well, as far as making it worth the while. There's an inflation factor that goes with ODOT projects. There's a right-of-way factor. But the Asbury project went fairly smoothly, and the increase in cost that we ultimately saw there was due to the Forest Road ravine and the retaining wall and everything that went with that. Our preliminary engineering for this project, to my knowledge, hasn't indicated any major concerns like that. We've also had contact with the owners, so we'll see.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions?
No, ma'am.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll keep you posted.
Ms. Parker has 2 human resource-related items for the board's consideration.
Good evening. The 2 items I have for you tonight involve annual renewal, updating kinds of topics. The first one has to do with the township's property and casualty insurance. As you know, we've been with OTARMA for many years, I would say probably close to 20 years now, and have had a continued good relationship with them. They represent the Ohio Township Association Risk Management Authority. That's where the OTARMA acronym comes from. Once again this year, OTARMA was able to give us a quote that continued their same rates. Our overall premium did increase somewhat just because of the increasing value of township property and equipment. And the good news, especially with an organization like OTARMA, as a not-for-profit group, they're able to offer their members, which we are a member, refunds when the overall funds and investments of our collective monies, when those do well, then they're able to give back and share those profits back with the members. So this year, we will get a $9,800 refund on our premium. That actually brings us down to $128,159 for our annual premium, which is just a few dollars more than what our annual premium wound up being last year after the refund that we received last year. So unless the board has any questions, I would ask that the board authorize me to renew that relationship with OTARMA for another year.
And by a few dollars, Suzanne, you mean like $120?
Yeah, I can't do that math in my head quite that quickly,
but I mean on
thank you.
100.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
On a $128,000 premium, we're paying $120 more than last year.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Really interesting that over the last 6 years, we've barely gone up, 12%?
Right, and it goes back to working with a group that is a not-for-profit based and is essentially membership-owned. And we're in with a collective of other Ohio townships, and good fund management on behalf of the OTARMA board has been a great asset for us.
Good.
I would move to authorize the Assistant Township Administrator for Human Resources to renew the township's property and casualty insurance coverage with the Ohio Township Authority Risk Management Authority, retroactively effective February 23rd, 2013.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
The second item is the submittal of our annual professional development request for the board. As you know, every year we go to our department heads and we ask them to tell us what kinds of seminars, conferences, classes, everything that would fall under that professional development category. Where are you sending your employees this year, and what are we gaining by sending those employees? And when employees come back from these different training opportunities, they share with other employees, with the board, with their department head, what they learned, and was it money well spent. So we feel good about the feedback process and the review process that we have for these different training opportunities. I think you had in your packet a chart, actually 2 charts, that outline these development opportunities. One chart covers things that are required for licensure, certification. The other chart are sessions that may not be required, but are certainly worthwhile and have proven to be worthwhile over the years. So unless the board has any questions for me to entertain, I would ask that the board approve this outline of our planned professional development, and this will cover us up through the first quarter of 2014.
I'd like to make a comment. A couple of years ago, this board, during our extended session in the spring, we went through this with a fine-tooth comb, and we really in my opinion, we fine-tuned these kind of expenditures about as fine as we could get them. So that was my thoughts.
Well, and some of this, some of these are required to maintain certifications and licenses, and that certainly makes sense. And we have been given feedback from time to time from employees just exactly what they brought back to the township as a benefit. So I'm very comfortable with it.
I would move that we authorize the 2013-2014 professional development package as presented.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are a few remaining items that we'd like to present to you this evening. The first is, as the board's mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we had the annual planning session during which we asked the board to guide staff by outlining priorities for the coming year. The planning meeting that was held in 2012 was held a little bit later in the year than normal, so the board priorities that were established for 2012 covered the first quarter of 2013 as well. So what we have asked the board to do during the planning session was to review those priorities and determine if those are the priorities we would like to follow for the remainder of 2013. We do plan on coming back to the board in the fall to ask for the establishment of priorities for 2014. But there is a resolution before you based on comments that we've received from each of you during the planning meeting. We've tried to incorporate that into the priorities that you've established for staff.
I would move that we adopt a resolution acknowledging the Anderson Township Board of Township Trustee priorities as presented before us.
Second?
Any further discussion?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. We will make sure that those are posted on our website, and we will also make sure that they're distributed to staff so that they can keep those priorities in mind as they go about their daily activities. The next item we have is an annual request for funding to provide to the American Legion Post 318 in accordance with provisions in the Ohio Revised Code. This would allow the post to properly honor Memorial Day. The Anderson branch, as they now call themselves, I'm very pleased, it's the Anderson American Legion Post 318. They go around to each of the township cemeteries and perform a brief service to honor the veterans who have passed. So there is a motion before the board for your consideration.
I would move that we authorize a Memorial Day contribution of $100 to the American Legion Anderson Post 318 for the purpose of properly observing Memorial Day with the township as permitted by Ohio Revised Code, Section 307.66.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. The last two items are items arising from executive session discussion. The first is a resolution that would authorize the disposition of real estate on Bridges Road.
I would move that we adopt a resolution authorizing disposition of real estate as presented before us.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. The next resolution also provides for the disposition of real estate on Kellogg.
And I would move that we adopt another resolution authorizing the disposition of real estate as presented before us.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
That's all we have for the board this evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that's the end of our agenda items, and I now would like to announce that our next televised board meeting will be occurring on April 18th, 2013, at our new time of 6 p.m. Citizens may certainly call 688-8400 to confirm that. And with nothing further, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. Thank you for your attendance. Meeting adjourned.